Hare Krishna. I hope you have patience with me, because I found the verse really quite interesting, and well, it's not here though, but anyway, I'll read it. You can follow. But so how I approached it as like, it seems like Srila Prabhupada approached these verses, which was he took the words and he explained the verse by the words of the verse. I don't know if anybody noticed that. I mean, some of you have been around for years, so I'm sure you've noticed. Srila Prabhupada was referring to specifically to the lines and understanding the relevance of the words. It's my purification here. I'll try not to make it a boring class. Of course, we know we don't like that. So I'm praying for your blessings and blessings of Sri Lord Radha Damodar, Yashoda Damodar, that the class may be helpful to our spirit, to my spiritual life, everybody's spiritual life. Okay, so here it is. Should I just read it? Because I don't know who has a phone. Just read the verse. Okay. Okay. This is from Answers of Citing the Lord's Version from Srimad Bhagavatam. First, I forgot to do a little prayer. If you want to repeat, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Naruttamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, one should first offer humble obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto the supermost human beings, Sri Narayan Rishi, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavat uttama shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance on the classes of Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering of service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is destroyed to practically nil, and loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental hymns, is established within the heart as an irrevocable fact. I find a little remark, that is by rendering service unto the pure devotee. So maybe I'll touch on that a little later. I think that was how that verse goes. How we get to Krishna. We achieve the blessings of the Lord by pleasing His pure devotees. Okay, so here's the verse. I'll just read it, I guess. Bahu rupa iva bhate maya bahu rupaya ramamano gunesh asya aham iti manyate. Okay, the translations. By Divine Grace. The illusion living entity appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord. While enjoying in the modes of material nature, the encaged living entity misconceives, thinking in terms of I and mine. If you don't mind repeating, this, I'll say, you say. The illusion living entity appears in so many forms, offered by the external energy of the Lord. While enjoying in the modes of material nature, the encaged living entity misconceives, thinking in terms of I and mine. Purport. The different forms of living entities are different dresses offered by the illusory external energy of the Lord, according to the modes of nature the living being desires to enjoy. So here, I guess I'll just kind of break it as it goes. I don't think it's too, well, it is a little bit, it's one page. So as I go, just hopefully say a few things. And, okay, so in this, of course, this dress, taking on dresses is stated by the Lord himself in Gita, in the second chapter. He tells Arjuna how the living entity is putting on many different bodies, like dresses. And once the body's worn out, just like the clothes are worn out, we throw them away and get newer clothes. So we will be doing that, or we have been doing that as conditioned souls for many, many lifetimes. Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purports to this verse, and actually in his lectures on this verse, that we've been through many millions, he used the word millions of lifetimes we've been through with different dresses, enjoying, trying the external energy. The external material energy is represented by her three modes, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. So even in the material nature, there is a chance of an independent choice by the living entity. And according to his choice, the material energy offers him different varieties of material bodies. There are 900,000 varieties of material bodies in the water, 2 million vegetable bodies, 1,100,000 worms and reptiles, 1 million forms of birds, 3 million different bodies of beasts, and 400,000 human forms. Altogether, there are 8,400,000 varieties of bodies in different planets of the universe, and the living entity is traveling by so many transmigrations according to different modes of enjoying spirit within himself. So it's that enjoying spirit that keeps the living entities transmigrating through these bodies. One second. I'm a little splayed out in this, but okay. So I want to. Let's see. Okay. I'll wait to say. I was going to say something, but I'll wait. And okay, I'll keep reading. So by the desires that perpetuates our sojourn in the miserable samsara, or wheel of birth and death, disease and old age. And Maya is giving us different dresses. That verse comes up, prakriti kriyamanane gunikarmani sarvashaha. So it says that we're bewildered by the Maya. Vimudatma, the next line is ahankara, vimudatma. We become bewildered by the false ego of misidentifying with these dresses. And then we think, lastly, that I'm kartaham itimanyate, that I'm doing all these activities, but in actuality they're carried out by nature. So Srila Prabhupada mentions, I'm referring to a lecture in Tokyo about this verse that Srila Prabhupada gave. Apparently he gave 2 lectures on this verse. And he says, we develop certain mentality by our association and desires. And so by contacting these modes of nature, these sense objects that are within various different modes, we become conditioned to desiring and interacting in these ways with the material energy. And as the material nature goes, it tends to degrade the living entity. Generally, although the living entity can upgrade by good association, but generally the entity degrades. It's said, there's 2 things that's said about the living entity when we fall down from the spiritual world. One is that we get a body of Lord Brahma, that's being stated right somewhere. And in another place, Srila Prabhupada says that we go way down to the very bottom of the chain of entities and work way up. So I'm not exactly sure which is, if there is an absolute truth to that. But in any case, Srila Prabhupada mentions along this subject of being conditioned by the bodies we get. He says that, number one, we get a body due to our desires to interact with Maya in different ways. And then, upon having the body, the living entity interacts with the various sense objects according to the modes he's acquired, and then becomes more conditioned because of those activities in that life. And then because of that conditioning that one has undertaken, engaged in, then he gets another body, and then, it's a chain. You can see how it keeps, because of this, then that, then because of this, more bodies and more conditioning. It's an endless entanglement that the soul becomes implicated in, and only by contacting the pure devotee, unalloyed devotee of the Lord, who has the knowledge to set the soul free and allow him to engage in pure devotional service, can the living entity get freed from this entrapment of samsara and the miseries. So, So that, in regards to the desires and the ways that the living entity gets conditioned to want to try to enjoy and be happy in this mundane world, which is never possible, since our real happiness is to enjoy in connection with the transcendental senses of the Lord and His enjoyment. So, but this second verse, well, the second line says Maya Bahu Rupaya. So it says the material energy gives Baha Rupaya, which already spoke about many different forms of life. You can imagine, the fish, they had a certain desires to be there under the water, enjoying this and that, and the birds wanted to fly. We see a lot of people, they're doing artificial flying in the air. They really like flying, and some like bungee jumping. So there must be an animal that gives the facility of bungee jumping, like an insect. We see insects going different ways, up and down, sometimes in different things. It's kind of like they're getting the desire. The soul wanted to bungee jump in the human form, so now it's bungee jumping in another form. And I shouldn't be laughing, I'm sorry. It's kind of, maybe not, it's not funny. And suffering. Thinking he's enjoying, but suffering. Because what happens, and that insect has naturally enemies that will come and devour him at any moment. But the soul doesn't understand, being entrapped in this quagmire, that danger is at every step. So this is why the living entity must come out of this miserable, dangerous condition to the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and enjoy blissful, happy, eternal life with no more danger or anxiety in one's life. So the third line says Ramamano Guneshu Asya, and I thought that is described. It says Ramaman, enjoying as it were, is Ramamana Guneshu, the modes of different qualities, Asya, of the external energy. So that seems like that line just capped up what I was trying to say about the living entities trying to enjoy in different gunas, modes of so-called enjoyment. Okay, and let me see if I can pick up again on the purport. How this Okay, I'll read, continue there. Although there are 8,000,000, says Srila Prabhupada's purport, 8,400,000 varieties of body in different planets of the universe, and the living entity is traveling by so many transmigrations according to different modes of enjoying spirit within himself. Even in one particular body, the living entity changes from childhood to boyhood, from boyhood to youth, from youth to old age, and from old age to another body created by his own action. The living entity creates his own body by his personal desires, and the external energy of the Lord supplies him the exact form by which he can enjoy his desires to the fullest extent. So we see, living in the human form, the purpose is not to enjoy these senses like that, to try to fulfill an enjoyment of, interacting with nature, like I want to go flying. Those put on wings and fly. I want to jump out of a plane and risk my life and hope the chute opens before, it's such a risky behavior. But because people don't understand the value of the human life, they do these things. Even Srila Prabhupada would say this car civilization is very dangerous. It's at any moment, he says, there could be a crash. We see even Srila Prabhupada got in a crash. That was in Africa, with Ramananda, who was in the back seat with Srila Prabhupada, and someone rammed them head on coming around a curve. And so that was an example. There's danger every time. So picking up again, Srila Prabhupada, it says, the tiger wanted to enjoy the blood of another animal, and therefore, by the grace of the Lord, the material energy supplied him the body of the tiger with facilities for enjoying blood from another animal. Similarly, a living entity desiring to get the body of a demigod in a higher planet can also get it by the grace of the Lord. I was going to comment after this purport, it's kind of almost finished, about how since the living entity we're in great difficulty in a conditioned state, and it's hard to break our habits that we've acquired. Some people get hooked on this drugs like heroin and smoking. It's a difficult habit to give up, and practically impossible unless one gets that higher taste, param dishva nivartante. So, Srila Prabhupada, I don't mean to go off too much, just this little point here, when Srila Prabhupada mentions that some entities want to enjoy blood of the other beings, he said that people can come out of this habit by the chanting of Hare Krishna and by honoring Krishna Prasadam that was cooked in ghee. He specifically said ghee, and ghee because why? He said that's the real blood of the cow. This other blood will entrap us in mundane energy, life, birth, after, samsara. But the ghee is the real blood, the real relish of the taste, transformed from the milk, since milk comes from the blood, comes from the cow, blood, into blood into milk, milk into butter, butter into ghee, like that. And you offer it to Krishna with devotion, and that it's not different from Krishna, Radha Krishna, and people take it in their bodies and become transformed. I am going on, but I'll stop a little, but I just want to mention also, in Vrindavan, when Harisari Prabhu, who was Srila Prabhupada's personal servant, very long standing, that he invited his parents to Vrindavan to see Srila Prabhupada, get his audience. And so they went into his room, and so Srila Prabhupada talked to them very nicely, and they were enjoying Srila Prabhupada's association very much. And then they had to go, because their plane was leaving very quickly, so they had to rush back to Delhi, and had no time to really linger after that. So anyway, they left, and Harisari Prabhu went back to Srila Prabhupada's room very excited and thanked Srila Prabhupada very much and said, "Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for giving them your association. They benefited so much." And Srila Prabhupada said, "Well, did they get prasadam?" And Harisarguru thought, no. And he said, well, Srila Prabhupada, they were in a hurry to get to their plane, so they couldn't take. Then he said, well, then what was the use? Can you imagine how, that point that he was making? If they didn't get prasadam, then what was the use of their coming? Although we know they were in Vrindavan Dham, saw the unalloyed devotee of Krishna, got it, but still, so the prasadam is a vehicle for people to be freed from these heavy addictions that keep one entrapped. And again, I'll say specifically, Srila Prabhupada, and this was his words I heard on the tape. I don't know, I probably couldn't find the tape I was listening, it was like years ago. He said, so this should be cooked, this food, to offer this in ghee. And he said, not in any garbage, referring to the oil. He said, not just in any garbage. He referred to the word garbage. So, we know some oils are okay, offerable too, like olive and sunflower, so different things, it's fine. But that we can understand from this, I feel that this ghee, cooking prasadam and ghee, is so vital to get the living entity out of this entrapment that this verse is talking, that we're hearing about, and has the power to lift us up, out, and free ourselves to engage in pure devotional service and make a success of our life. So, what time is it? Still have time, 25. Okay, so maybe we'll keep talking. Okay, I'm trying to see the place. So similarly, living entity desiring to get the body of a demigod in a higher planet can also get it by the grace of the Lord. And if he is intelligent enough, he will get it. So the minute freedom of the living entity can be fully utilized, and the Lord is so kind that he will award the living entity, the same type of body he desires. The living entity is desiring is like the dreaming of a golden mountain. A person knows what a mountain is, and he also knows what gold is. Out of his desire only, he dreams of a golden mountain, and when the dream is over, he sees something else in his presence. He finds in his awakened state that there is neither gold nor a mountain, and what to speak of a gold mountain. So I found it interesting, really, this verse, the first line, which says, Bahu Rupa Ivabhati. So that word Ivabhati, I looked at that, and it says manifested is the meaning that's given here. But this Vibhavati was commented by Srila Prabhupada in that Tokyo lecture about this verse, that Vibhavati also means as if he has got a body. That was very interesting. So these bodies aren't really our bodies. These are borrowed vehicles of Maya, of the external aparakriti, lower energy of the Lord. It's temporary, but it seems like Ivabhati, like a mirage, like, yes, it's me, it's mine, but it's not. And he also, the cloud example was given. The cloud in the sky is there. He says sometimes we see it like an elephant. We see it, then it becomes a tree. It starts changing, We see, right? Have you looked at clouds? They change, like a little wind up there. So it looks like something, and then that starts, it loses its shape, and then it becomes something else, with imagination. So he said, that's just like this body. It's changing. It comes in like this, little baby, little boy. Then the teenager looks different, then the young man, and then a middle age, then an old man. We know old age certainly becomes different, and then gone, vanishes. Another body is coming. Hopefully for the devotee, it's a spiritual body. If we've been practicing like seriously, but others, another body, chaktvadeham, means giving up the body. We get another puna janma. So I thought that Ivabhati was a very interesting word, and also Srila Prabhupada states it's like it appears to be so, but it's not really. It's Maya. It's not this. So our real bodies are given by Yoga Maya, Yogamaya in the spiritual world is giving. Well, I don't know specifically. I don't know scientifically how we get our spiritual. How that spiritual body's developed. I'm not so astute on that. Maybe we can hear from you, Prabhu, maybe later. Just want to ask for questions if you know. But Srila Prabhupada mentions that Yogamaya, she is, making arrangements for us to engage in our real bodies that don't. Well, they may change by the spiritual shaktis, because sometimes we learn living entities can change forms in the spiritual world for the pleasure of the Lord. So it's all blissful bodies. And these bodies here, as we know, they're asat, achit, nirananda, not eternal, not full of knowledge, and not blissful. So that's what we look forward to. And we can experience that in this process of bhakti yoga, of devotion. This Satchidananda, very more happy existence. Normally it's gradual as we keep going, like water wearing away the stone. Not overnight generally, unless a soul comes in at a very elevated state, and then they show symptoms of having done this bhakti in their last life. We've had examples in our society, and do have examples of the older Prabhupada's disciples and these younger devotees in our whatever age coming in a higher level. We see that because of previous practice, or coming in as who knows what level they're coming, something wonderful. So, okay, so maybe I'll pick up. I have to go a little quicker to finish it. The answer is that the Lord clearly wishes that every living entity be in his pure consciousness as a part and parcel of the Lord, and thus be engaged in the loving service of the Lord as he is constitutionally made. But because the living entity is partially independent also, he may not be willing to serve the Lord, but may try to become independent as the Lord. All the non-devotee living entities are desirous to become equally as powerful as the Lord, although they are not fit to become so. So the living entity sometimes described in a Bengali verse, Krishna Buliya Bhagavan Chapare, that I forgot Krishna Buliya, and what do I want to do? Bhagavan Chap. I want to enjoy like the Lord. I want to be Krishna. So we have a world full of living entities who are bewildered, trying to be the supreme, the center of all, and who feel that all this is mine, and I'm in control. So you see, this chaos is becoming more prominent because of increasing bewilderment, vimuratma. That the living entities are illusioned by the will of the Lord because they wanted to become like him, like a person who thinks of becoming a king without possessing the necessary qualification. When the living entity desires to become the Lord himself, he is put into a condition of dreaming that he is a king. Therefore, the first sinful will of the living entity is to become the Lord. Again, the first sinful will of the living entity is to become the Lord, and the consequent will of the Lord is that the living entity forget his factual life and thus dream of the land of utopia. That's where we are, where he may become one like the Lord. The child cries to have the moon from the mother, and the mother gives the child a mirror to satisfy the crying and disturbing child with the reflection of the moon. Similarly, the crying child of the Lord's the crying child of the Lord is given over to the reflection, the material world, to lord it over as karmi, and to give this up in frustration to become one with the Lord. Both these stages are dreaming illusions only. There is no necessity of tracing out the history of when the living entity desired this, but the fact is that as soon as he desired it, he was put under the control of Atmamaya by the direction of the Lord. Therefore, the living entity in his material condition is dreaming falsely that this is mine, this is I. The dream is that the conditioned soul thinks of his material body as I, or falsely thinks that he is the Lord and that everything in connection with that material body is mine. Thus only in dream does the misconception of I and mine persist life after life. Remember that very famous little children's rhyme, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Isn't that, it must have been a self-realized soul. Somebody very kind of insightful to write that. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Life's but a dream. Amazing. Wow. This continues life after life as long as the living entity is not purely conscious of his identity as the subordinate part and parcel of the Lord. In his pure consciousness, however, there is no such misconceived dream. And in that pure conscious state, the living entity does not forget that he is never the Lord, but that he is eternally the servitor of the Lord in transcendental love. So there it is, I believe, that last statement, that this is our real position. We can't enjoy dreaming that we're God, or dreaming that, we have our, loving relationships, this perverted Madhurya Leela, the sexual contact in the material world doesn't produce the happiness that we expect. Vaisheshika Prabhu will say this on some of his lectures, that we are expecting some return from this engagement in Maya with other souls, but the result, it doesn't pay back. It doesn't give us the expected happiness. So only by this knowledge, transcendent knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures, we become enlightened and can understand our need to turn our focus towards devotional service, completely away from the Maya service, and only that will evoke gradually our original happy Satchidananda state in this world even, and then in the next. So I want to just comment. It's almost quarter of past, so ask for questions. But so Srila Prabhupada would say instructions to read his books. He said, if you don't read my books for about an hour, he'd say an hour or two, which I find that hard to do for myself, but I keep it in the mind, but something, regular reading, like brushing the teeth. To keep a healthy position, we have to regularly do something. So regularly reading these books and sometimes hearing some tape lecture will gradually transform consciousness, give us the knowledge to set us free. I did write I was scribbling I just couldn't keep up with what I wrote, but there are wonderful verses in the Bhagavad Gita. We do hear the Gita is the ABCs of spiritual life. Srila Prabhupada actually sometimes describes it, but it's so full of powerful verses of, like the verse that describes that the Lord in the heart will remove the darkest of ignorance with a torchlight of knowledge. The word dvipa is mentioned. The light of knowledge will become enlightened by engaging in devotional service. We know so many verses, Bhakti Mama Vijanati. Only by bhakti will this knowledge be awakened fully. So that's the thing. By following the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master very carefully, we will be successful in spiritual life. So having a spiritual master, and by pleasing him, following his instructions, we will achieve perfectional state of Krishna consciousness in this life. By neglecting the orders of the spiritual master, which is called Guru Avagya, it's considered one of the 10 offenses, this holy name. We won't be able to chant the holy name purely. This is my situation, unfortunately, but I'm working on it. And that nice verse is also given. I can't say it exactly, but if one is infested with the 10 offenses to the holy name, the love of God that we're seeking will not be manifest. That was a paraphrase. So offenses that, if we go over these 10 offenses regularly, also that will remind us how to avoid them, and so then we can chant the holy names purely. And by chanting the holy names purely, we're connecting with Krishna more purely and getting purified in our heart. And then we'll be able to associate with devotees more purely. And then with that good association, then we'll become more and more purified and enlightened. So you can see how it all snowballs in a good direction for us if we do that. So, Hare Krishna, that's all I have to say. So does anybody have any comments or questions or reflections? Maybe. Yes, Nitya Prabhu.
Thank you, Mathura. difficult part of our teaching that you mentioned, that I've been asked many times, is where the statement is that we're trying to become God, or the living entity thinks they're God. If you ask the normal person or anybody, you know, they'll never say that. So where does that come from? You're saying, you know, you say, hey, you know, your problem is you want to become God. No, I just want to be me. I just want to have a life or whatever. Hardly you can find anybody who will say, I mean, maybe like Donald Trump is only going to want to be God, but, you know, but I mean, the average person that doesn't have so much you know, power or fame or money or so where does that come from?
Okay.
How's that explained in a deeper way?
Samadhivam sam jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. So that verse in Gita, Lord Krishna is describing the intrinsic nature of the souls in the pure state, that they're my eternal parts and parcels, separated parts and parcels, but never really separated, but only by the Maya we feel separated from Krishna. So we are, Srila Prabhupada would describe the souls that we're sample God. He would sometimes even say the spiritual master is God and Krishna is God. They're both God. And he would say the spiritual master is servant God and Krishna is master God. So in our pure state, we're God. I don't know, start something. We're sample gods. We're sample Krishnas. We're little parts of Krishna eternally. So we're as good as Krishna in that sense. And the statements made in these literatures, in the pure state, we go back to Krishna. We enjoy just on the same level as Krishna. We're on the same level. There's no distinction. We're out there. And the souls, by Yogamaya's influence, in Goloka, forget that Krishna's God. And so they're really enjoying this forgetful state in the Yogamaya forgetfulness and relishing being on that same Vasudev platform and enjoying these rasas as Krishna is equally, same level. So naturally, intrinsically, we feel we should be happy. I felt that. Remember, we all felt that before we became a devotee. We're seeking pleasure. That's what we do. We were doing these karmis, whatever. Gyanis seek for pleasure, and they're looking for the Brahman, the pleasure, relief from misery. So intrinsically, we want that full godly pleasure. And so the way to get it, though, eternally is engage in devotional service and reawaken our natural God nature through loving service to the Supreme Godhead, Krishna. And then that natural feeling of, I want to be God, I want perfection. It's had only in that relationship. And otherwise, we're frustrated life after life, and we'll experience that Mrityu, samsara vartmani, the path of repeated birth and death. Does that make
Question. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Does anybody have any other comments? I know it's a full house today. But the thing is, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj told them, Srila Prabhupada was there when he mentioned in those days that if no one comes to your lecture, just preach the four walls. He said, they will hear. The four walls will hear. I can't understand what that means, but you certainly have been a great audience and supported what I felt was going to be a very difficult task to say anything, and thank you very much for that. And Srila Prabhupada ki jai, jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Vrindavan Shri.
Good job.
Well, it's only said my name, I think, 3 times.
Really?
I think it just says cattle vigilant.
You know?
It's vigilant, it's kind of casually. I don't remember.
Let me read it real quick. Get it properly stated. Really, like he accents it with nobody else